Good morning, Foxes, and welcome to another round of Wake Up with Coach, day 21. I am so excited to be here this morning, but today, instead of building or going or doing things, we need another round of just being able to sit and chat for a minute. Now, we at Franklin Discovery Academy think you guys are the most amazing kids in the world, and we think you guys can do amazing things with your life, and that is awesome. You should be able to do the very, very, very best you possibly can, because we don't train people and we don't teach kids so that they could grow up to be a business owner or run a huge video company or become a professional basketball star. Those are great things, but we actually teach so that you can become the best person you can be. Whatever job, whatever place, whatever situation you're in, we build character. Character is the essence of what we all really are. It's who we strive to be in our actions and our thoughts and things like that. Famous quote: managers are people who do things right. Leaders are people who do the right thing. Very, very different, those two. Now, the cool thing about being a leader is leaders do not command excellence, the best. They build it. They make excellence. They do it in all that they do, everywhere they go, things they interact with. Now, that excellence starts and ends with leaders of good and strong characteristics. Pretty simple. Now, the crazy thing is characteristics, character, it doesn't just show up, it builds over time. Well, many think that much of a person's character is formed early in life when they're really young. But there is no direct time when somebody can say, this is when this person got this characteristic. It doesn't happen that way. Learning happens a lot, and a lot of our information that we retain happens when we were really young. However, characteristics are things we build throughout our life. A strong person can be good or bad. That's right. You can have a strong characteristic, strong traits, and still do bad things, and you'll probably influence a lot of people. You can probably think back in history of somebody who was a great leader, but he did or she did the wrong things. It can happen. So we want to help you become the best leader you possibly can by building good, strong, characteristic traits. Okay? Now, when I was in the military, I had the opportunity to really learn a ton about character. Because in the military, I mean, the number one thing they say is integrity first. Now, integrity is a huge word. We're not going to cover that big word today. We're going to cover something else. I told you about a situation when I was at boot camp. Remember all that? Well, while I was at boot camp, I learned they didn't just test you on your physical abilities, how many push-ups you could do, or how many sit-ups, or how fast you could run, things like that. They actually taught you, or evaluated you, I should say, on your character. That type. They want to see what type of person you really are. Now, I didn't realize this, but they actually have 23 characteristic traits that they evaluate you on. 23! Now, here's the list of those 23 traits or those characteristics that the military was looking for in their people. Look at all of these. Courage, bearing, confidence, integrity. Oh my goodness, decisiveness. Look at all, the list goes on. Maturity, improvement. Are you willing to get better? Here's some even fun ones. Ready? Sense of humor. That's right, that is a characteristic. Can you laugh? Laugh in crazy situations. Now, you will notice that number one on this list is courage. Holy cow. But what is courage? I went to Webster's dictionary and I looked it up. Webster says this: the quality of being brave, fearless. That didn't help me much. So I actually went and looked a little bit farther and found a better definition for it by an author by the name of Mark Twain. He hits it right on the head when he says, courage is resistance to fear, master of fear, not the absence of fear. which essentially means in order to have courage, there must be some fear. Now, why would they put that first on the list? Well, if you remember from our other videos, fear defeats more people than any other thing in the world. How many times did you stop doing something because you were scared you weren't good enough, or it wasn't going to turn out the way you wanted it, or you couldn't play the piano well, or you can't sing well, or you're not good at Legos, or you're not good at sports? How many times did fear get in the way of you doing something excellent? But here's another great quote for you. Courage is the ladder on which all other virtues, characteristics, come from. Think about it. Which one of those other 23 characteristics that you read on that list of a real good leader characteristic person doesn't require courage? There is not one single characteristic trait on this list that does not require some courage to do it. Now, courage is not an emotion, it's not a feeling. It's the byproduct, what you get from facing your fears. That's a deep thought. Do you remember that story about Barco the dog? Well, we landed in a country named Qatar. And in Qatar, it was nothing but desert. My job was to build everything as fast as I possibly could. I was put in charge of, remember I was in charge of fitness and food and lodging and laundry and all the other type of stuff. Well, when we landed, there was none of that there. The base was empty. So my job was to build home for all the troops that were coming in. And in about 2 weeks of us being there, there were no tents, no buildings, no nothing when we landed. But after about 2 weeks, we had nearly 5,000 troops at that base. Now, I had the opportunity to work for some pretty important people, but I was brand new in the military. Remember, I had only been in the military for about 3-4 months when I deployed. But right about that third month, I had my boss come to me and he says, "Lieutenant Young, meet us at the front gate Friday afternoon, civilian clothes." I said, "Yes, sir." And I went back to my tent. I was like, "Oh man, this is awesome. I'm gonna do some really crazy fun things. It might be, I might get to carry a cool gun or something." But no, I showed up in my civilian clothes Friday afternoon, and out there at the front gate were 5 people. The general, 2 full bird colonels, a lieutenant colonel, and a command chief master sergeant. Each one of these gentlemen had at least 20, maybe 25 plus years in the Air Force. And there's me with 4 or 5 months. Well, actually, by that time, it's probably closer to 7 months because I had been out for 3 on the desert. Now, before I tell you the rest of this story, you need to understand some things. Growing up, I was a young man who grew up and made some decisions in my life that I wasn't going to do certain things. There were things that I wasn't going to participate in. It's just a choice that I made when I was young. Now, we jumped in the car, and the general drove, and we drove off the base. Nobody talked for like 40 minutes. I didn't even know where we were going, out in the middle of nowhere. Finally, we came upon this giant gated community. It was like an oasis out in the, way off in the distance. Like, what is that? This big giant wall just right there. And then right there in the middle is a gate. And as we drove up to the gate, these officers or soldiers looked at us and motioned us through and said, "Come on through." And as we drove through, I swear it was Hollywood. The houses were humongous. They were huge. They had pools and palm trees and all sorts of crazy stuff. I mean, well, the general didn't slow down. He went right down to the end of the block and he drove right up into the last house in the end of that block in the driveway. And he got in there and put the car in park and he says, "The only words I can remember spoken on that trip," he said, "We are entering the ambassador of Qatar's home. The relationship between Qatar and the United States is not good. Don't offend this man." I said, "Okay." As we were walking right up to the door, no joke, as we just get to the top of this door, this gentleman is standing in the doorway, and in his hand, he's holding some beer bottles. Now, I told you there were some things I chose not to do when I was a young kid. This was one of them. And I sat there and went, "Oh my goodness, I don't want to offend this guy. This is bad." But he started handing them out to people. He says, here you go, here you go. And the general and the commanders, and they took it and they got it to me and he handed me one. I said, no, thank you, sir. I appreciate it, but I'm okay. And he gave me kind of a weird look. Well, while we were out in the backyard barbecuing, all the other commanders and I were all standing out there. They were all talking politics. I was being really quiet because I didn't know very much. And the ambassador who's standing out there goes, hey guys, hold on a second. I got a special treat for you. And he goes in the house and he comes out with this little square box right about this big. And he opens this little box. He had a nice little thin wrapper around it. He cuts it off really gently and he opens it up. And inside of this box, and it was like a wood box, not like a cardboard box. Inside are what they call Cuban cigars. Now I know, because I work in the military, what those are. Now Cuban cigars, that's another one of those things that I chose not to do. And he starts handing them out to everybody. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is bad. And he hands one to me and I say, no thank you, sir, I appreciate it. I'm okay. And he gives me another weird look. But he doesn't say anything. A little bit later, we're sitting down at this table and it was awesome. We were eating this humongous food. I mean, I had so much food, it was unbelievable. Like 12 knives and 6 glasses. I mean, the whole thing, it was magnificent. And I ate so much, I was like, oh, I can't eat anymore. And the ambassador, who's sitting down at the far end of the table, he turns to us and he says, guys, this has been so much fun. We're so glad that you come and spend some time with us. My wife, to celebrate this occasion, has made a special pie. Homemade. And his wife gets up and she walks into the kitchen. And then she comes out of the kitchen with this pie and she's holding it in her hand. It's so yummy. Smoke's coming out. Oh my goodness. I could smell it. It was a rhubarb pie. My mom used to make rhubarb pie. I remember growing up with it. Now my mom, bless her sweetheart, when she made rhubarb pie, she'd come out and she'd put it down on the table and she'd say, now Daryl, there are 2 ways to make rhubarb pie. There's the way I choose to make it, and then there's the way sometimes the world chooses to make it. And so when she comes out with this pie, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so amazing, so good. Uh-oh, this could be bad. And she carried the pie down to the ambassador. The ambassador got out and cut the knife and started cutting into this pie. I was like, oh no, please don't. But sure enough, sitting on the other side of the table, far end of the table, I could smell the alcohol that was inside this pie. I started having an argument with myself. Oh, just do it. It's not going to hurt you. Just do it. You don't want to offend this man. Just do it. And we started arguing. You guys might recognize that. It happens quite often to everybody. But I was so scared and so worried. It's like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And the ambassador starts passing the pieces out. And as I got mine, I passed it on as quick as I could. And sure enough, I got left with one. And I sat there and I held that pie. I was like, what am I going to do with this? Oh my goodness. Well, what would you do? Now, that's your choice. I'm not saying anything's good or bad. Me? I took a chance. And I took that plate and I put it right off to the side. And I sat really low in my chair and I said, please don't see me, please don't see me, please don't see me. But sure enough, as everybody else was eating and doing all their great stuff, the ambassador sitting down at the end of the table was staring at me. And he asked the question. Out of the blue, he said, is something wrong? And everybody at the table went silent. And they all looked right at me. I was like, oh my goodness, this is bad. This is really bad. And I said, sir, nothing's wrong. It's absolutely fantastic. This is great. And he says, you didn't want my alcohol. You didn't want my cigar, and now you're not eating my wife's pie. What's wrong? I didn't know what to say. I really had no idea. I thought for a minute, maybe if I started singing, maybe if I sang Amazing Grace, that would make it, no, that wouldn't help. I was just stumped. I said, sir, nothing. It has been an absolutely amazing dinner tonight. There were some choices I made as a young man, and I am doing super right now. Thank you very much. And he just kind of looked a little at me and nods his head a little bit. And his wife gets up and walks around behind me, and she puts her hand on my shoulder, and I can remember the weight of that. It was humongous. She put her hand on my shoulder and leaned down in, and I thought she was going to grab a knife. But no, she didn't. She didn't do that. But she leaned in and she said, what would you like for dessert? I was like, oh, Oh my goodness, are you kidding? What? I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of what to say. I was like, and I'm looking around at the general and the commander and all these other people, and they're looking at me like, you're a dead man. You're not gonna make it past it. You're gonna be arrested when you get back to bed. Your career's over. You insulted this guy. I'm just like, it's my last meal. I'm gonna eat something. So I turned to her and I said the first words that came out of my mouth. I just stumbled over and I said, Oreos and milk? And she looked at me, walked into the kitchen, came back with a pot, not a box, not a little bit, a pot of Oreos. No joke. She went back to the kitchen and came out with a gallon of cold milk. Scouts on her. I was like, I was chugging it. I was like, don't eat my peanut. Stay away from my Oreos. This is mine. I left that house thinking that I was done. But I went back to the base and nobody said a word. Nobody commented. Nobody said a thing. The next morning I woke up. Nobody came and arrested me. Nobody said anything. We just went on about our business and our work. But the unique thing is, every Friday, hundreds of miles in the middle of nowhere desert, with barbed wire and police dogs and snipers and airplanes and all sorts of other stuff, somebody would sneak into my tent and leave a small box of Oreos and 3 small cartons of milk every Friday. I was never able to figure out who it was. I think it was the ambassador's wife. She was pretty sneaky. From that day forward, that general that was there and those officers, they watched out for me and they took care of me because they knew who I was and what I stood for. Courage. Don't think I ever had courage. But let me ask you a question. Now, after all that's said and done and all those type of things, do you think I'd ever give in to somebody else offering me any of those things? Because I faced my fear and used courage, from that day forward, I never once, again to this day, ever got offered any of those things. Who would have wasted their breath? Courage is the resistance to fear, master of fear, not the absence of fear. The more times you go through situations that have fear in your life, the stronger your courage will be until you start making decisions. Nope, I'm not gonna steal. Nope, I'm not gonna lie. Nope, I'm not gonna do this. I'm gonna be an honest person in everything that I say and do. I'm gonna be nice to people in everything that I say and do. Those decisions take courage. Those decisions build character. Character makes you into good leaders. What a fun day. I am so glad we talked about courage first. Next time, next week, I'll pick another one of those and we'll go through one of those others too, just for a few minutes. I sure appreciate you spending the morning with me again. I look so forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a great day.